I'm so excited for a couple of reasons. And Dr. Aline Darc Piculo dos Santos joins us from Brazil. And she's a newly graduated doctor in design at Sao Paulo State University. And as you can see here, her title relates to stigmatization, assistive technologies, and how design interacts with that. So I'm very excited to have her share her presentation with us. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Santos.
Hi. Thank you, Leslie. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me well. I'm very happy to be here to talk a little bit about my research and to talk about this very complex subject that is how design can help to reduce the stigmatization of assistive technologies. So today I'm going to show you a study that was published in the journal Design and Rehabilitation Assistive Technology and was a result of a collaboration project between São Paulo State University, UNESP, and Oslo Metropolitan University, Oslo Met. So for today's objectives, we are going to discuss the factors that influence the stigma of assistive technologies and how their aesthetics influence their use or their abandonment. And then we're going to talk about how design can help to minimize the stigmatization of these devices. But before we start, let me properly introduce myself. I'm from Brazil, as Leslie said. I speak from Bauru, a city in the middle of São Paulo. I have a bachelor's degree in product design and a master's and a PhD in design from São Paulo State University. And this is our campus. I'm also part of the Laboratory of Ergonomics and Interfaces and the research group Design and Assistive Technology. And in our lab, we mainly have two research lines related to ergonomics. One is about everyday products, and the other is it focuses on assistive technologies. So we have researches about wheelchairs, prostheses, orthoses, and of course, assistive technologies for people with visual impairment, which was my theme for my master's and my PhD. So I worked with, more specifically, assistive technology for the mobility of people with visual impairment, which brings us to our presentation of today. So to start, I brought it here a question from Shinohara and Rubruck, and I thought it was very interesting to think about and to reflect on. And they asked, if assistive technologies are built to be functional and usable, but people are abandoning them, how effective are they in helping people with disabilities accomplish daily tasks? So to give you a brief context, assistive technologies are, by definition, any product or service that are meant to promote the functional capabilities of their users. And usually their users are someone that has a disability. So that's why we have this association between assistive technologies and disability. And also, besides promoting functionality, they also promote the social inclusion. So that's make us think, if they are meant to be functional, why people are not using them? Because we see there still are high rates of abandonment. So that's what makes us think, why is that? And some studies that have shown that one of the reasons it's because of personal meanings associated with these devices. So if that's the case, it brings us to our next question. How can we make them more usable and therefore more effective in helping people to accomplish tasks? And I think in that context, we can use design, more specific product design. So that's why I brought it here, a few concepts from product design. So we have Professor Lobach that says in his book that when we design any product, we determine a function for this product. And usually this function, it's meant to meet certain needs of the user. And we have three functions. The first one is the practical function that is concerned about the physiological needs of the user. So it focuses on the functionality of the product. For example, if I'm very tired, I've been standing all day and I need to rest, I need to sit. This is my physiological need. So in this case, I can have a chair. So the functionality of the chair is to sit on. And so this is the practical function of the chair. But besides practical function, we also have the aesthetic function that's more concerned about the psychological needs of the user. So in here, we have the concern about the sensory perception during the use of a product, how the user is going to feel about using this product. So we have the visual attributes, but not only the visual aspects. We also have the touch, like the texture. And the main function of the aesthetic function is to promote well-being. So this product is going to promote well-being among its users. And related to aesthetic function, we also have the symbolic function that is actually a result from aesthetic aspects, from the aesthetics of the product, and is concerned about both psychological and social aspects of the use of the product. And in here, we also have the influence of previous experiences. So we have a product and our previous experience are going to influence how we're going to feel about this product. For example, if we see a product that reminds us of our grandma, we are going to have a positive feeling about it because we have a positive experience. And besides that, we also have the social aspects. And here we have this concept that we attribute meaning to any product. And these meanings can confirm and reinforce certain values. And usually, when we talk about that, we're talking about status, because we have some products that are symbol of certain status. And when we see someone using this product, we associated the meaning of this product, the symbol of this product, to its user. So it transferred the meaning and the value of the product to the user. And this may define one's identity. And when we talk about that, we can transfer these concepts to the development of assistive technologies, because we see there are a lot of development about new assistive technologies that are being developing, and especially now that we have the advancement and evolution of technologies, new technologies, we see that they are developing new assistive technologies because they provide new solutions, which is good, of course. But usually when we see these new developments, we see that they usually prioritize practical function, and they don't have the same concern about aesthetics and symbolism of these devices. And the issue is that we may have a product that works well, that's very functional, but if the user is not satisfied, if they don't have a good experience with it, they're not going to use it. They're going to abandon the device. And we know from previous studies that the acceptance of the user and the satisfaction of the user with the assistive technology influence their decision in either user or abandonment. So nowadays, even when we talk about product design, like everyday products, now that we have many options as we do, uh, we have products that are similar in function, in functionality and quality. But what's going to make our decision? What's going to influence our decision? What's going to make us choose one product instead of the other? To buy one product instead of the other. So this is the importance of the aesthetics and the symbolic function of a product. But of course, they are very subjective, but they are very important as well. And when we talk about the aesthetic of assistive technology, we have historically, they are associated with a disability, and they have this aesthetic that are very much related to medical devices. And the issue about some assistive technologies is that sometimes the user that has a disability, but their disability is not visible. But sometimes the assistive technology is going to bring visibility to their disability. So this is something that maybe they don't want to. They don't want to disclose this information right away because they don't want to be defined by their disability. And when we see someone using some certain assistive technologies, we know right away that they have a disability, and sometimes this influence how people interact with them. So when we talk about that, we have also this conception about assistive technology, as I mentioned, and some studies have said that historically they have been stigmatized because they signalize that their users are different from their peers. And when we talk about stigma, it is important to understand what is stigma. So I brought it here, the concept, the description from the Cambridge Dictionary that says that stigma is a strong feeling of disapproval that most people in a society have about something or someone. And there are some studies that have shown that social factors influence the adoption, the use of assistive technology, because people are more likely to abandon an assistive technology if you make them feel different from the others. And when we talk about more specifically about people with visual impairment, even though the white cane that's commonly used assistive technology for mobility, and it helps them to have a more safe and independent mobility, we still have some studies showing that despite of that, some people still don't want to use a white cane because they don't want to be stigmatized, because the white cane is a symbol of the visual impairment. And this brings us to our study, and I would like to present our team. So besides myself, we have Anna and Professor Fausto and Professor Frulda from Oslo Met. And our study was conducted in Norway, in the cities of Oslo and Lillestrøm, and it was conducted in 2018. when Anna and I lived there for a few months as part of a research internship as part of her master's degree. So this study aimed to identify which factors that could influence the perception of stigma of two different assistive technology with same functionality, that was mobility, for people with visual impairment. So we conduct interviews in English that lasted around 30 minutes, but it was very informal. We did not record or film any of them. We just took notes about their answers. So I conducted the interview and Anna took notes and also notes about their body language. And we started the interview asking warming up questions. So we asked them how was their daily routine like, how they moved around the city. And then we start to ask about our established topics. So we asked them about their experience with disability, if they knew someone that lived with a disability, their knowledge about assistive technology, if they knew what it was, if they have used one, if they knew someone that used one. And then we focus on our subject and we ask them about their perception about people with vision impairment and also their perception about wearable and handheld devices. And for this, we chose as example for the handheld device, the white cane, that is a well-known assistive technology for orientation for people with visual impairment. And for wearable device, we chose smart glasses. And we chose these technologies because back then we were hearing a lot of studies that were developing smart glasses to help the mobility of people with visual impairment. And that caught our attention because it was new. It's important to highlight that back then, smart products were not as common and as usual as it is today. Today, we see like smartwatches everywhere, but that wasn't the case back then. So we thought it would be interesting to know about the perception since it was considered a new product, so you wouldn't have a symbolism associated with it. So we would like to know how they would feel about it. So as I mentioned, we interviewed them and then we transcribed the interviews and we analyzed by creating open codes. And then we organized into a list of relevant topics that we saw similarities between their answers. So I brought it here a few of the results that I thought it would be interesting to share with you. The first one was about the influence of a close relationship in the perception. Even though all participants claim knowing someone with a disability, only 3 of them had a close relationship, like a family member, and they had they saw often. So we divided their answers and we observed some differences between these two groups. And in general, we observed that the participants that had a close relationship with someone that has a disability, they seem to have positively influenced their perception on disability, on people with disability, on assistive technology. And we also observed a different use of vocabulary. In the group that did not have a close relationship, we observed that they use words like problem to define, like someone having problem to define someone with a disability. And they also showed more insecurity and discomfort to answer the questions, while the other group showed more empathy to deal with the subject. And this result is actually corroborated from others found in the literature, and that says that social relationships and experience influence our actions and thoughts. And in the case of the group that did not have a close relationship, it might one possible explanation might be the fear of being judged, the fear of say something wrong, even though we ensure we guarantee them that we would not be judging their answers, but that might be one explanation. And about the aesthetics of assistive technologies, we observed an association between wheelchair and disability when we asked them to define disability, define someone with a disability. And this is actually an expected result because wheelchair, it's a very visible assistive technology, and it is also an international sign of an international symbol of disability. When we have places that are reserved for people with disability, we have these signs with this icon of a wheelchair that marks, like in parking lots, that marks that this place is reserved for someone with a disability. So this is expected. And we also observed that the group that did not have a close relationship showed more concern about the aesthetics of assistive technology if they would have to use one in the future. And the other group, they did not show this concern. And maybe because they understand the benefits in using assistive technologies because they already have experience with someone that uses assistive technologies. So they understand what benefits it would bring to their lives. So they're not as concerned about how people would see them. And a few participants mentioned that they would not use an assistive technology if it would draw negative attention towards them despite their functionality. And this also corroborates what we mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, because we have seen studies that have similar results of people mentioned that they would not use it even though they knew about the functionality and the benefits. And the difference between both devices, wearable and handheld, we observe that to describe a person, a user of a white cane, we observe they related, they have more pity in their answers. While when they were describing smart glasses and the smart glasses user, they associated with products from everyday. And they said that it could become mainstream, like smartphone, that any person could use. And they also described smart glasses as desirable and modern. And this is also corroborated by another study that says that wearable technologies are becoming increasingly popular and are also used for self-expression and of users' identity. And this is interesting, and actually it's very interesting to see this study 5 years after we conducted, because as I mentioned back then, we were starting to hear about wearable technologies, and now we see that in fact it became very popular. And it is also used for self-expression, because we see now we have this association with no, I'm sorry, wearable devices. We have like people using smartwatches, and we have this image of the user. So it is interesting to see how this image has evolved. So to summarize, of course, I need to mention a few limitations of the study, as everyone does. Of course, our results do not allow generalization because we had the sample that was small in size, and we also have cultural and social factors that may influence their answers. But it was interesting to see our results and how we can understand how design can help. So to summarize our results from this study, aesthetics influence how assistive technology and their users are perceived. And assistive technologies are often negatively associated with disability because of their symbolic meaning, bringing more visibility to their users. And as we see, smart glasses had more acceptance and they had this perception that was free of negative judgment, which make us conclude that maybe a product that is free of stigma or negative symbolism may stimulate the user's desire. It's going to make them want to buy, to want to use it, and this may have an easier acceptance. So now we can think how design can contribute to minimize the stigmatization of assistive technologies. Well, we may not change the perceptions about stigma, but we can try by using design to minimize these perceptions. So we should strive to change this association of assistive technologies are built only for people with disabilities. Because instead of creating products using inclusive design, inclusive products, we are creating products that are excluding people. So in this case, we can strive to enable equal access to allow people to do things just like everyone else. And we can maybe build accessibility into mainstream technologies. And we have an example that is very successful, that is smartphones, because we have accessibility features in the smartphone and everyone uses a smartphone nowadays. So we don't need a new product for people that need some accessibility features. So this is one successful example. And of course, we should try to address not only practical function, but also aesthetic and symbolic functions. Because when we see a product, when we see a user, we have this first impression that's going to influence how we're going to interact with them. And also we may provide customization and personalization of these devices. And for that, we have 3D printing. For example, we have a lot of studies that have been using 3D printing to customize assistive technologies, and they have had good results. We may also use user-centered approach, like user-centered design, because when we bring the user to the center of the design process, we understand better their needs, and we are going to design, to develop products that are assistive technologies that are going to meet their needs. So it is important to understand the user point of view. And of course, we should also try to use interdisciplinary teams because it is very important to have different views of a problem, to have different backgrounds, to provide solutions that are broad solutions that are going to meet the user's need as well. And another recommendation would be the use of rolling playing techniques. And this we can see the use in design teams, but also we have been using in academic settings, and they have been shown to provide positive results. And it is about uh, putting the designer in the shoes of the user. So we have simulated activities, and they understand how the user interact with a product, with assistive technology. And it is important to highlight that one of the interviews actually mentioned this. She said that the use of these techniques in class also help them to have this more broad view of the reality of the user. And I brought here a brief example of the use of these suggestions that we used in a course here in UNESCO. I have here a few pictures. We had this course, it was called Inclusive Design, and it was an exchange program between Norway and Brazil. So we had professors and students coming to Brazil, to UNESCO, and it was a collaboration between the design department and the occupational therapy department of UNESCO. And the students, they um, they were divided in groups, and they each one had a user to create something for this user. And they had this interaction, this interdisciplinary team of designers and occupational therapists, Norwegians and Brazilians, different backgrounds. And they interviewed the users so they would understand what were their needs, what were their capabilities. And this example that I brought it here was pen. It's actually a pen case because the user, he has Parkinson's disease, and he really liked writing, but he was not able to write anymore because of the shaking. And they created this pen case. It was 3D printed, and they have this weight that they would add, so it would give more balance to the user, and he was able to write. And it was very interesting to see. He was very excited when he received the pen. And of course, it is a very simple example because the course was very short, but it was very nice. And we talked to the occupational therapy that works with him a few months later, and he was still using it. And here we have these aspects. We have user-centered approach, we have interdisciplinary teams, we also had role-playing techniques in class, and the customization, because they printed in green because the user, his soccer team, the colors of his soccer team is green, so he chose green. So these are my references that I mentioned, the studies that I mentioned for today. And I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I'm open for questions. And if anyone would like to contact me to know more about this research or other research, please feel free to send me an email. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So we'll open it up now. Raise your hand, put it in the chat. I see that there are many representatives from AT programs throughout the region, actually. So I'm just curious for our audience. Question for our audience is: do you see the aesthetic piece taking a major part in someone's decision with AT and in your assessment of what AT to give them? What are your all's experiences?
Is it for
Oh, for the audience.
the audience? Yeah, okay.
A lot of our audience works with our general public on AT needs.
How do you raise your hand on this? I'm not sure with Zoom.
Go ahead, Mark. We hear you.
Oh, well, I was looking for the raise hand, but I'm used to different thing. Anyway, maybe for higher functioning people or people without intellectual disabilities, the stigmatization is an issue. But working in a special needs field, most of the people I've worked with who have assistive technology aren't really aware of the stigmatization. They may use board maker programs and things like that, or just a simpler version of those, or they may go to McDonald's and have the picture menu to pick what they want to eat and don't really give a thought to looking different. So it may be a higher order process of thinking for people who find the stigmatization off-putting. But in the population I work with, or anyway, it doesn't seem to really be an issue for most of the folks I've encountered in 20 years. So it's just my input.
No, that's good.
Hi, this is Doug Cumston. I'm the program manager of the West Virginia AT program. As far as stigmatization, I know we see it the most in teenagers and onward up to that 24 or something age, right when kids start to, be aware of themselves and surroundings. And I know we've been just trying to help that with AT Champions, a program we're trying to get just more normalization with people with AT in their hands, kind of be role models. But it really comes down to how comfortable somebody can be and how helpful that item is for them.
Thank you. That's good.
Just to add what he had said, I work for Disability Rights West Virginia. I'm the CAP PABS advocate. Most of my focus seems to be the high school age children transitioning into adulthood. And that I'm just adding to what he had just said of that's where I run into it too. These kids, they're 18 years old, they're becoming adults, and they don't want to go into a new job, a new thing, and be the only one that's like that. And yeah, that age group can be difficult to convince that they need assistive technology.
So, Dr. Santos started her presentation with talking about abandonment. And in my ignorance, I just never thought, but it makes complete sense based on your all's work, that it may fit them, it may serve a purpose to them, but they still don't use it. Do you all see that out in the field? So in that age group, they just don't use it? Yeah. Okay.
So we have that program that we're part of, AT Champions. And it's that sweet spot, it's that age range of kids. And a lot of them, when they're talking about it, they almost don't realize like they have to advocate for themselves. And that's a large piece of it, is that, they've had this sort of community around them. They have their IEP meetings, they have their family members, they have their teachers, helping advocate for them, getting the device, or, maintaining it, or, whatever. And then when they hit that age, they may need it in the workplace, or they may need it on the college campus. They're not realizing even the price of them. So I think it's just making sure that your kids are informed, or like they're a part of those discussions, so that they're able to advocate and understand what's going on around them. So I think helps with abandonment, and also it helps them advocate for others around them.
That's a great comment, which makes me think of a question for you, Dr. Santos, in terms of design. And I love the fact that you came at this from a design aspect. And it's really cool that you were working with others to develop AT, right? On the spot, getting information. So in terms of what Ali was saying about advocacy, self-advocacy, what would your recommendations be from the design standpoint of among these adolescents, young adults? What could be the next step for them in designing something that they could use, or I don't know, how could they continue to incorporate design in their choices and work with their AT team?
I think when we talk about this age group, we should think more about technology and try, as I mentioned, try to make more accessible, because they're going to use the same technology as their friends. And when I also agree with Ellie about we people need to understand more. We have stigma. We have this stigma is very much related with misconceptions. So if we bring awareness and try to explain how it is, because some people do not know what assistive technology is. And I think we have, as I mentioned, role play techniques in classes. I think it's been shown very positive result. We also have used with children. We had this project in schools. It was like plays and toys, and it was interesting then to understand how, because they had friends with disabilities. So I think this is one possibility that we may have. But I think, yeah, I think we have many, we should try to educate people to understand better as well. But I think we also can try to use more technology and building accessibility. We also have this, guidelines nowadays for developing apps, to developing digital products that trying to bring universal design, so people can use in the same way. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And I would also, I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
I would also like to mention that as the other colleagues were saying about different groups, in my experience, I worked with adults with visual impairment, and I also work with children with that use prostheses. There were amputees, I think it is the word, and for both of this group, they had this concern about aesthetic. We see that because people have this misperception that people with visual impairment don't care about aesthetic, but they do, they care. They use white cane. Sometimes they don't use white cane because they don't want people to know they have visual impairment. They use glasses, like sunglasses, to not be visible, and they customize their white cane, which I thought was very interesting to learn about. And for the children, what we've been doing here in our lab, it's because they in some case they have to use the prosthesis, like arm prosthesis, and we are customizing. We are using superhero teams, so they want to use it. And actually one kid said that their friends in school, they wanted to use as well because it was like Spider-Man theme. So this is very nice to see designing helping.
Real quick, and then I'll be quiet. But there's a colleague of ours who I won't mention, but on a team he uses a cane, and it's the most beautiful cane. But he says, watch this when you ask him about it or make a comment about it. And it's a flute. And he's very musically oriented. And so you speak of aesthetics, you speak of that is him, that represents him. And so he has, and I don't know the history of that tea item, but it's perfect. And it hit all these boxes I thought of him. Other questions, comments? Okay, so where are you going next in your research?
Well, I just finished my PhD and right now I'm working as a professor in the university. So I started to teach. I'm sorry for everyone for my English. But
Great.
yeah, I think we actually, I didn't talk much about my PhD, but we developed a wearable, like a backpack with a system to identify obstacles for people with visual impairment. So we had a camera and it vibrates when they approach an obstacle. So we developed a prototype. We tested first pilot test and we had good results, but we need to make improvements as always. And then I think we're going to make these improvements and try to test with real users, because we tested with a control group and in controlled environment. But yeah, I think this is the next steps.
That's wonderful. If you ever need people to help test those items once you've developed them, let us know.
Thank you.
We're happy to try them out. Sounds great. Okay. Well, let me tell you. So if someone has a question, I'm going to pop up the last screen again. Your thoughts on evaluation would be most appreciated. If you want to take your phone, you can scan the QR code. I will share the information with everyone. And the last thing I wanted, that's kind of a business order, is if you would like a certificate of attendance for today, just shoot me an email or put it in the chat, whatever is easier, and I will get those out. Not too long from now, definitely before the Thanksgiving break. And then with that, if no one else has put any other comment, then let me just thank you so much for joining us. I know you're very busy. Everyone's very busy. I geek out that we're able to connect with colleagues in Brazil, for an hour. It's just so wonderful. But thank you for sharing your work, and we wish you the best, and don't be a stranger to it. So
thank you. Thank you for thank you for everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.